Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. I'm so glad. For everybody watching, I bet we're excited. We've come to a new year, a year of myriad of possibilities. And I'm glad for those of you who will be able to watch now or watch later. I'm just glad to have you in this space. So, this is The Woman Called You. For those of you who are not acquainted with what The Woman Called You is all about, it's simply a platform where we inspire change through personal growth. You know, thankfully, I think this is our second year, and in that time, we have seen women grow in steps. I'm not here to talk about leaps and bounds because we grow in steps. I think it was the philosopher John Locke who said, you can learn anything at any point in your life so long as you learn it in steps. So that's basically what The Woman Called You is all about, whereby women are encouraged to look inwards, get acquainted with who they truly are, learn to love themselves before they can even begin to think of making impact. So um I'm sure you've seen the scriptic title. It's due over January, yes. And hopefully it will set the tone for what the year would look like on this platform, The Woman Called You. So for those of you who are here now or would watch later, I hope that at the end of January, we would have taken a drastic step towards decluttering and deconstructing our minds to gain clarity. You might wonder what this is all about, but I bet that there's a woman out there who, because of what the world has thrown at us in the past, I think 48 months or so, because of 24 months, I think. The pandemic has, I think it's about 2 years now, yes. Late 2019, yes, that's when the world, was hit by this pandemic. And for so many, it's beginning to look as if your world is probably hazy. You feel stuck, no doubt, because I know I experienced it at a point during this past 24 months. And you're beginning to wonder what it is your life should look like. I mean, what's God's will for your life? Like I always tell people, you must believe in something. There must be a God over you. So what's the will of that God? For somebody like me, it's Jehovah. For anybody out there, you know what you see or consider your God to be. So what's the will, of God for your life? You might be stuck, maybe lack direction. Yeah, it's pretty normal. You're not alone, if I would like to put it that way. So maybe you may feel you lack direction. You probably have gotten off the path that you started on. I just want to assure you and just encourage you that it's never too late. Whether we like it or not, life will happen. life will seem to confuse us at one point or the other, you know. But one thing I believe is, if you stick to your game, you ensure you play your part. Just be sure that as long as we try to walk within God's will, His purpose for our lives, you'll definitely find your passion and eventually meaningful direction. Because, like I always tell people, I have a background of addiction and recovery, and you're always told that you must acknowledge that there's a higher power over your life. So whether you choose to be an atheist, whatever you choose to be, um, I one thing that I'm sure of is that within everybody, within every woman, lies the power to do better. So in these 31 days, you know, we'll begin to declutter our minds, those things that you believe stop you from stepping up your A game, those things that we need to deconstruct. There's a saying, they say you can't teach somebody how to write, is it with left hand in old age? But I said that's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. It's the lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell, if I dare say that. You can learn to do different, but first you need to declutter your mind, disabuse your mind of the things you've hitherto known, the things you believe. And once you do that, you will begin to deconstruct your mind, because for wherever you are right now, it's taking time. It's gone on over time. You need to begin to deconstruct, and when you deconstruct those things, don't worry, we'll get to it as time progresses. We have 31 days after all. You begin to gain clarity. We always believe that everybody must have that Paul on his way to Damascus experience. Well, for those who believe that that's what they might have to experience to gain clarity. But I tell you, you gain clarity from beginning to understand who you truly are by gaining insight of why you are where you are. So today, ladies, day one, today what we're going to be doing is this. It's simple. We are going to just answer this simple question. Why should I declutter my mind? Why should I declutter my mind? I just want to encourage us, right? Just stick through with this thing for the next 31 days, and you begin to understand the benefits of decluttering your mind. We sometimes think declutter is when we declutter our space, or maybe somebody's a hoarder. I need to improve the aesthetics of my home. I need to improve the aesthetics of my workspace, my business, and all of that. But I want to let us know that one of the major focus of decluttering is your physical and your mental well-being. It is so important. You must begin to declutter yourself, your mind, of every excess clutter in your life. And when you do this, in the next 31 days, hopefully we'll go through this, you begin to understand and see the positive effects of ensuring your mental state and overall wellness is as it should be, So I would not take too much of our time today. I'm sure in the background you're hearing fireworks and all that. It's New Year. Um, some people have things, other engagements and all that. So today I just imagine that today's discussion will be a short one. But I just quickly want to just run us through why we should declutter our minds and the benefits. The first benefit of decluttering your mind, I tell you, is you begin to see there will be a decrease in your stress and anxiety levels. There will be a marked decrease in your stress and anxiety levels. Why do I say this? If somebody watching here can just, you know, acknowledge or confirm this thing I'm saying, you begin to understand that when you're stressed, you begin to have physical manifestations of those stress. Maybe you end up grinding your teeth, you have a headache, you have In fact, it gets as bad as constipation and things like that. You understand that the more stressed you are, the more stuff, the more sensory overload to your body, and it begins to pile up and it begins to pile up. And before you know it, your body begins to tell you it is tired, it needs to give way. So, one of the benefits of decluttering is that it will not only decrease your stress levels, it will also decrease your anxiety levels, and hope. So you see that just as when you have a dirty room, and yes, you might come into the room, you feel tired, you can't do anything about it, and all of that. You begin to understand that the more your room is cluttered and you can't do anything about it, it's a reflection of not just your physical state, but your emotional state. So that's the same way with when we have so much clutter in our minds, we can't function at optimal level. I know it always usually used to happen to me back in the day when maybe I go on a trip and I come back. I find it very difficult to like start putting things back to where they usually were. I just live everywhere scattered. And I mean, it can be like that for the next 1 week. I come to the room, I want to take something. I just daintily, step over things I want, go do what I need to do. And it was always like that. And at times like that, when I noticed that kind of behavior, I always used to like to shake myself, literally shake myself, to tell myself that, look, something is wrong and it's manifesting in this physical clutter around you. I don't talk too much about that because that's at a later point, in our discussion over the next 31 days, when we're talking about the clutter anxiety cycle. So it's the same way with when your mind is cluttered, when there's so much stuff. You worry so much and all that, and at the end of the day, you can't make headway on any one thing. So you see, when we're talking about the clutter anxiety cycle later, you begin to understand how to compartmentalize every single thought. The Bible will say, taking, that's how the Bible puts it. It says, when you take hold of every imagination, at some point, I think I'll look for that scripture when we get to that clutter anxiety cycle. It says you take hold of every imagination, you bring it into subjection. That's the same way when you begin to choose to declutter your mind. You have, deliberately decided that you're going to take hold of those things, those stuff, so to speak, that will otherwise build up in your head, in your mind. And sometimes I don't know who watches this skits, that guy who does Prakia, when he's always, like making fun of Z World programs, and he talks about breathing, and Prakia is always breathing like this, you know. That's actually, though you might not breathe like that, don't know, not no need for any kind of overload or so, but you see that that's actually how you feel, and that's because your mind is cluttered. And when you declutter your mind, today I'm saying, why should we declutter our minds? You see, you begin to become more productive. You can think. The Bible says, sufficient is the trouble of today. And also says something like, no matter how much you worry, it cannot make a change. You can't change the number of hair on your head through your worry, and all of that. So when you decide to declutter your mind, you begin to see that you begin to get productive. You begin to learn to cut down to the essentials of your life. Trust me, by the time we're doing our scale of preference in this 31 days, in the course of 31 days, you see that most of the things we do on a daily basis are totally unnecessary. Some people say, 24 hours is not enough. By the time you begin to declutter your mind, you begin to cut down to the bare essentials of what you need for survival. I'm not speaking from um, a theoretical, headspace. I'm speaking from a practical headspace. The moment you begin to declutter, you begin to see yourself cutting down to the bare essentials, the bare necessities of life. You become much more serious with your organizing skills. If I ask you now, how many of us here have a to-do list? How many of us have a to-do list? So many of us, we just go through life. It's like a race car. It's a fire brigade approach. We do not have a to-do list. That's the first thing you will need to learn when you choose to begin to deliberately declutter your mind. With your to-do list, you'll be able to live, a cleaner, more organized life. You'll be able to adopt to a minimalistic attitude. You'll see that most of the things we think we need, we don't actually need them. Our minds are so cluttered because the world around us is oversaturated with stuff. When you keep on clinging to the idea of having, spending, your mind is cluttered. So it's going to be a practical session for the next 31 days. I'm not here, I'm not going to preach. If at best, I will minimize biblical references because I want this thing to go into our hearts. And the more you understand why you should declutter and deconstruct your mind, you'll be open to spiritual, more spiritual inferences, so to speak. Nobody will tell you to read your Bible. Nobody going to tell you to study to understand because it's going to be part of the process. And when you begin to declutter your mind, you notice that you begin to make, how do I put it? You start making bigger changes, and that's the truth. Because the more you make bigger changes, the more you are eliminating things from your life you don't need. It might seem scary, I know. It might seem scary, but you would need to eliminate certain things from your life. I don't want you to, at this point, say, oh, she's saying we should declutter our minds and all that. And you begin to feel intimidated by thinking that cutting down is in negative terms. No. Even in relationships, if you begin to declutter your mind, you'll be deliberate. You begin to take into cognizance, the amount of time you spend with people. You begin to look at it and like, what am I gaining from this discussion? You will notice that people might ultimately, when you start decluttering, will think, oh, she's a recluse. No, it's because now you treasure whatever time you spend on human associations. So you'll notice that for everybody you have any kind of, association with, it's impactful because you know that time, where some people have thought time is limitless, you know that time is of value. Some of us will stay and will gossip for hours. That same amount of time we spend, excuse me, gossiping is usually the same amount of time, even less, that people have used to do very productive things. You understand? So when you declutter your mind, you will not just only become productive, you would live a cleaner and more organized life. And one thing also about decluttering, when you choose to declutter your mind, you become, how do I put it now? You become much more intentional. You'll be intentional with everything that you consider as an essential for your life. Is it in relationships? When you have productive relationships, you become intentional in grooming those relationships. When you have relationships that are not productive, you get to the point where you have to make the choice on whether or not you need to remain in those relationships. And that's the truth. There are not two ways. It's just like when you buy things in your house. For any woman watching, you have what you call your kitchen necessities, don't you? You have them. Those go-to items that when you want to eat, you go there. These are the things I will use. Even in your bathroom, you have your bathroom necessities. You have your bathroom essentials. Even for your dressing, you have your dress essentials. You have those clothes that you just take, you put on. You see, if you're already doing that, you already understand without it being labeled, you already understand the elements of intentional living. And that is one of the things you get. That's the stage you attain, one of the many stages you attain when you choose to commit to decluttering your mind. So I don't want to go on and on today because, like I said, it's a public holiday and some people are out still doing one thing or the other. But I want you to understand one thing, that when you begin the journey of cleaning, as in physically cleaning out your mind, decluttering it, one of the things you would have, and one of the things you would even get rid of, you would begin to develop a growth mindset. And if you used to be somebody who had a fixed mindset, you'll be sure to get rid of it. So I just urge you, make that choice today that you want to declutter your mind. And step by step, brick by brick, I assure you it is possible. You can actually declutter your mind. You can deconstruct your mind. All it takes is one decision. And I hope you're able to make that decision today. So, like I said, let me leave you all to enjoy your holiday, your New Year celebration. Like I said, you're hearing fireworks in the background. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night and God bless you.